Very lucky to have with us Hannah Jones, who will be spending the rest of the day with us. Hannah has been involved. I mentioned yesterday that the UK, it's very fortunate that our offices are in the UK, because the UK was very quick to embrace technology in schools, and there's a lot of experience here going back 10-15 years. That many people are just starting to, people who are newer to the technology, finding that there's a lot of things, a lot of assumptions and a lot of, let's say, promises that or expectations from technology that are maybe not being met, or maybe met in different ways than they expected. And we find that bringing teachers to the UK, there's a lot of experience here that people can share and are willing to share on what works and what doesn't work. Now, Hannah here was involved from the very early stages, from the very early pilot stages of bringing interactive whiteboards into mainstream schools here. She was involved in the pilots. She was also involved in the scaling up projects, a £50 million project to bring, you led the £50 million project, right, to bring interactive whiteboards into the classrooms in the UK. She's since been involved in training school leaders and head teachers on how to get the most out of technology and how to train their staff to use it most effectively. So I think we're very fortunate. Hannah actually did come in July when we had a seminar here for 35 school principals from Israel, and they couldn't stop talking about the insight that they were able to gain. So I think we're very lucky to have Hannah here again, and I welcome her to the seminar. And sorry if I've given you a lot to live up to, but we really appreciate you being here. Thank you
very much. Thank you. No pressure at all then. Thank you once again for welcoming me to World Aud. In July, as Daniel's just said, I had the privilege of working with some principals that are actually beginning to embed the technology in their schools. And when Daniel told me that change champions, innovators and the best of the best were here today, I was very grateful to be asked to come in again. I must say that when I walked in and you were talking about the Khan Academy, robotics, research into iPads for early years, it's very good talking to the very knowledgeable, but it's also very scary, and I nearly turned around and went back out again. But it's lovely to work with you today. Before I begin, because I know what we're like with technology, any resources, any videos, any tools that I mentioned today, I've already put in a Dropbox for you, and if you give me your email, then by this afternoon you'll have access to all of the tools and resources that we use. I'm very much of the ilk that we need to give as much freely away as possible and collaborate, as I hear that many of you have been talking about today. There are three areas I really wanted to cover with you today, and we'll see how far we get by lunch. I think we might only do bullet point one. But first of all, really looking at developing pedagogy. Through all the projects that I've done in the UK, I believe the fundamental reason that any of them have been successful at all to whatever level they have is that those involved had a constant questioning and a constant desire to actually see what improved learning. We can get very easily swept away with technology, and I think we've all probably seen technology making teaching and learning worse if not applied correctly. So really a focus on the learning. For many of you, you will already be successfully sharing your expertise with others and moving them on to actually embrace technology and improve learning also. And today just really wanted to share some tools with you and some insights that we've had over the past 12 years in trying to move our workforce on in the UK as well. And then finally, when you've had enough of me talking, we will just really reflect on what you would like to get out of this week. Tomorrow you're visiting my colleague in school, Neil Hopkin, who works on the Connecting Learning team, and I'll just give you some insight and background into Neil's expertise so that again you're prepared for the questioning of him tomorrow. and prepare you for BET. It scares me every year, and I've done 12, but I'm still going back tomorrow. So just to prepare you for BET. I will be on the Toshiba stand if it all gets too much for you, and I can direct you to coffee and sanity. Okay, so I'm Hannah Jones. I worked 12 years ago for the National Strategies. The National Strategies is predominantly focused on improving teaching and learning and raising standards in literacy and mathematics, but also across the curriculum. So really a background in teaching and learning. There I brought in the first interactive whiteboards into the country. We started off with 6 regions and 60 interactive whiteboards, and within a year's time we had 150 regions and 46,000 whiteboards. So quite a scale up in terms of technology into classrooms, and if I'm being honest, too quick to ensure that the good practice went with that scale up. I also leadership. I then went on to work for the National College for School Leadership, and I was responsible for their strategic leadership of ICT, a programme that worked with over 60% of school leaders, 14,000 in 1 year, and we also worked with other countries such as Japan, Turkey, Wales, Scotland to put together programmes for those as well. And we really, for both the strategies and the college, our focus is on learning and how the environments, physical, human and virtual, really do come together to impact on that. So we look at ICT and also design. Design has a huge importance in learning. I'm afraid to say this room in Denmark would be illegal because there's no natural light, and natural lighting increases your recovery rate and your attention span by at least 40%. So when we're adding all the ingredients together, how do we make learning the best it can possibly be? Oh, and I'm also trustee for Student Voice UK and Europe as well, so I can hand on heart be down with the children, as it were, at the ripe old age of 40. So these are the programmes that I've led and delivered with colleagues, and always written with the best practitioners and the best head teachers. The way to improve practice is to get those that actually do it to work with others, rather than people like me that just talk about it a lot. We had interactive whiteboards, as you can see. It went national within 12 months, and that was because we proved to the government that it had a remarkable effect on boys' literacy in terms of their reading and writing attainment, and that's why the programme came with such heavy funding. As I say, I think that was too quick, and we'll look at how to scale things up, but actually that led to a lot of side-to-side head movements for some poor children, I'm very sure, with endless PowerPoints whizzing across, and actually there was little time for teacher training. We then moved on to strategic leadership of ICT. As you will know, you can have pockets of excellent practitioners, but without the leadership and without somebody at the top driving it, those pockets will remain pockets, and when those teachers leave, that passion will leave with them. So how, as leaders, do we actually ensure that we talent manage, that we provide resources, that we provide time, that actually we support it and have long-term goals to meet our needs? And as I say, that was possibly the largest UK programme that we delivered. And then finally, we were lucky enough to, lucky is one thing, we were lucky enough to begin a £65 billion building project within schools, and that's when we really began to research in terms of the effect and impact that the environment has. And I still don't think people actually consider the environment enough when we are considering new technologies as well. It does change very rapidly, the environments that we work in. So we have teaching and learning, leadership, and all the environments. We're currently working with different countries. The bottom one is just very interesting. We have recently, our industry has been pushing for our IT curriculum to be updated in terms of the NetGen. We are not developing creative computer programmers, we're not accessing the gaming market, and we're falling very rapidly. So the government has just set up studio schools, and we're working with one that is purely designed to develop gamers, and these are from the age of 14 to 19 into the workplace. So although our 50 million and 65 billion and all those lovely numbers that I keep talking about no longer exist, there is small amounts of funding to develop talent and pockets. Okay. In terms of scaling up, and I think this is the same at any level, whether it is at school level, whether it is across a group of schools, or whether this is at national level, there are some very simple stages, I feel, in terms of actually embedding good practice that we need to put through. First and foremost, an absolute focus on learning. People do not go into education, at least in this country, for money or status. They go in for a real want to actually improve the life chances of children that are in there. So to get people on board, it has to be in terms of their learning or students' learning. We found that financial incentives for teachers did not work at all, but actually praise, reward, recognition for teachers had much more impact. As you're doing over these few days, actually get an expert group together so that you can share and not recreate in different places, so that you are challenging, so that you are asking those questions that will be asked by those that are not convinced about ICT. You are convinced, and the converted and the people that are driving this, but you have to ask yourself as well the questions that the people that don't want it will throw at you in terms of why should they change. Build up a want culture. We did have at one point teachers refusing, it wouldn't happen now, refusing to go to schools if they didn't have interactive whiteboards. They wouldn't apply for jobs. We had one teacher cycle from John O'Groats in Scotland to Land's End in Cornwall to actually sponsor people to get his own interactive whiteboard. Build up that want culture by people, by sharing as much as possible. And continually take criticism, research, review, improve, and give everything away for free, if possible, and encourage your colleagues to. Right, let's get down to learning, much more interesting than scaling up. And throughout these 2 sessions, please stop me, talk, do what you want, tweet, type, anything. I would ask you to stare out the window if there was one, because it would increase your concentration. But just feel free to do as you will. I heard earlier that, and I think we have an evolving pedagogy, but not quick enough. In terms of teachers' use of technology and learners' use of technology, I would say in the UK we are still predominantly on the teachers' use of technology as a teaching tool. We are increasingly, and tomorrow I believe, although it's a primary example, I believe you will see one of our schools where that has been completely flipped, and actually the learner is responsible for their technology and their own learning. But I would say that we're still actually on the teaching side. We are moving, however, in terms of our curriculum, our approaches, further over to the right. Content into process, group into personalised and collaborative, project-based, much more than subject-based. In this country, we still tend to teach children to be bad Googlers in terms of reciting content. Actually, that's not the skills that they will need for the future learning. Extended learning times, we are moving much more towards, so that actually children can access deep learning, and that fits into the project-based learning. In terms of our secondary schools that typically had 40-minute periods, I'm not sure if yours are similar and that small. 45-minute periods. In our secondary schools, we did an analysis of actually children moving from room to room, books out, etc., etc. And those students on 40-minute timetables lost up to 7 hours in the week. We haven't got the time to lose one complete day with our students and their learning. So it's about different organisation. And of course, moving to anywhere, anytime learning. The Khan Academy was mentioned earlier. so that you can access learning as you will. Video was mentioned earlier. 90% of the internet by 2015 will be video based. And actually we can access learning as and when we choose. Interestingly, for students, they're not that happy about that. We recently did a research with some students, and actually they said, we don't want to learn 24/7. And with the demand for standards, I assume it's the same in your countries, the drive from school is to get them to learn as much as possible. So we do have to consider the pressures that technology can bring on. I personally have been responsible for emailing somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting quite irate that they hadn't answered me by 7 o'clock that morning as well. So we do have to watch ourselves occasionally. But we are moving there. And we'll look later at how we embed innovation, how we get that learning culture, how we get that want and the desire within our staff, within our students, and what is needed to be developed. But let's hear from the students first of all. These were Year 5 students, so they were 10. We sent in a camera crew. We did nothing else but to ask them what they wanted. So they did the storyboarding, the words, the descriptions. Many of our schools are... Yes?
One very small question. They really wrote this by themselves?
Yes, yes.
I'm asking because I saw about 5 videos like this. Same concept, and this question was...
Well, maybe they Googled it and copied somebody else, but they were left with a film crew. The head teacher at this school is actually the head teacher you will be seeing tomorrow. He left the school to move to a school in London. Not only did the students, we asked them in terms of technology what they wanted, how to do it, and I'm sure if they had seen others they would do it. But at the time I worked for the National College, so we had quite copyright rules. I tend to ignore those now. But quite copyright rules, and we put a lot of music on and X, Y and Z. And by the time we got back after the summer holidays, the students had emailed us, said that they didn't like it, they'd downloaded it, put some different music on it, and it was up on YouTube. So students take into their hands their own issues. But I think one of the issues we have, and I'm not sure about in your institutions, but we are still actually not allowing students to take in their own devices that they use naturally at home, and our students in many schools are actually powering down to go to school, which is an issue. But we know that the skills that are needed for students going to school, Year 5 at the moment will have an estimated 17 jobs in their first 20 years. Again, it's the adaptability skills, it's the learning to learn skills that we need to use. And actually, when IT is a utility, which it will be, by the time these students leave school, they need to be comfortable with all access, all platforms as well. So we can use technology not only to change what children learn, how they learn, where they learn, when they learn. The role of the teacher. And again, one of the most difficult things to change is the role of the teacher. And the teachers being comfortable, not knowing a laptop, not knowing an iPad, but actually being comfortable in the fact that it's the learning that we want to access, and they don't need to know how to do everything that is technology. The curriculum and its organisation, losing 1 day a week is not acceptable. And the school environment. If you search online for pictures of iPads, you will not see anywhere people sitting at desks with them. You will see people lounging with them. You will see people cowered over them and being collaboratively. And in our schools, at least, the furniture and the equipment that has the greatest impact, research shows, on learning above technology does not allow for it. Okay, as I said, I'm preaching to the converted here. But these are all images from the UK in the last 12 months of work that is going on in schools. And I'm just going to talk you through a few of them. Video, as we said, 90%. Many of our school websites now have their own YouTube channels. I don't know if any of you have your own YouTube channels in schools? Yeah, fantastic. We'll join up YouTube channels across the globe. Mobile devices. Some of our schools are allowing users to bring in their own mobile devices. Again, are there any similarities here? Not many of our schools are, but some of our schools are. Programming, it's very, very recent for us, but actually we are behind countries I would imagine in here as well in terms of accessing that market. Apps, app design, those two students are from Devon, south of England, and they developed an app that if somebody rang your doorbell at home, then from school you could answer that you couldn't take the parcel at the moment to try and cut down crime. I'm thinking of getting one for when my mum calls and I'm not in. But now that's up on iTunes and is being downloaded and purchased, and these two students are making an income from that. Cloud technologies. Many of your schools beginning to look into cloud technologies. We have one academy here, a secondary school, that estimates it will save £70,000 per year by moving to cloud technology. £70,000 per year that can be reinvested in learning. 70% of our funding at the moment is still being spent renewing and repairing hardware, which is not acceptable, and we're moving more to leasing. Anytime, anywhere learning, gesture-based learning. I've not seen this in any other school except for a special needs school where they have an orchestra and the special needs children do that. But I think the potential there is huge, and with Connect and the different games, again, how can we access children's passion and addiction to these tools and bring it into the classroom? And 3D has the greatest impact. In terms of hologram technology, we did some projects and some research. In terms of hologram technology, medical students who used it in 1 year improved accuracy by 56%. Engineering students, 46%. And we've used it within a school in terms of literacy development, and although it's only a year-old project, their literacy results are 17% better than the previous cohorts. Again, it's that engaging and immersion with technologies. Okay. These are the top 10, and I'm just going to ask you to arms up in a minute just so that we get a little bit of movement in. These are the top 10 tools that are currently used within the UK schools. And this was a report by NetGen, which is our industry pushing gaming. Can I ask, just hands up when you have one actively used within your school? So videoing and podcasting. Excellent. Presentation tools, PowerPoint, Microsoft. Collaboration and brainstorming tools, Facebook, MSN. Blogs and blogging. We'll get you blogging. Lecture capture tools. How many of us actually stream from classroom to classroom? Thank you. Student response systems, voting pads. Quite a few. iPads and other devices. We'll skip those two. Okay. So, still lots of different things for us to be thinking about in terms of technology adoption within our schools. In terms of blogging, again, it's not the technology, it's what we do with it. Have any of you heard of quad blogging? Yeah. Quad blogging is, the links to the website is underneath the presentation, so should you want to go in and access it. But a teacher in London is called Deputy Mitchell. He's slightly obsessed with quad blogging on his Facebook, on his LinkedIn, on everywhere he's obsessed. But he will link you up and you will get him at 3 o'clock in the morning. But quad blogging, he had a class of students, they were writing blogs and nobody was really reading their blogs. We put it online that you write a story, your teacher reads it, you put it online, 200,000 read it. They rarely do. And actually this was becoming frustrating for the students but also the teacher. It's difficult to sell something if nobody's reading your story or putting comments. So Deputy Mitchell entered into quad blogging and joins up different classes from around the globe. Again, something you may be able to take on. So that I'm a student in London, I write a piece of my story, and actually by the time I wake up and go back into school the next day, a partner in Australia has added to my story, commented on what I've written and taken it further on. In the afternoon, someone from Singapore adds on again. Later on the next day, somebody from Scotland adds into it as well. And you're getting not only collaboration, discussion, speaking and listening. Again, they can Skype should they wish to between these, but you're getting response and feedback to things. So it's ensuring that we sweat every aspect that we have in terms of technology and ask, actually, are we putting the mechanisms behind it? Are we putting the people behind it? Rather than just saying, yes, we have a class blog. Class blog is no good if nobody reads it and adds to it. Okay, just a little quiz before we move on. I call it a quiz, not a test. So don't worry, and you can keep your scores and your answers to yourself. But with the rapid onslaught of technology, when we had interactive whiteboards in class, it was okay. You had the teacher controlling the environment. As we move on and different mixtures come at us quicker and quicker and quicker, the e-safety and the internet safety becomes ever more apparent and ever more risky. And actually the best thing we can do for our learning is open it up, but we only need one disaster and the whole thing will come back in on us. So, this is a nice little exercise for teachers. I apologise, I know this isn't your first language, which is why I've put the questions up there as well. But actually, if we are going to work with our learners, do we really understand the environment that they're in? I've done this quiz with 20-plus-year-olds and they generally get about 5, so don't worry. I've done this quiz with 10-year-olds and they generally get about 13 to 15, but they just show off. Okay, so just scribble anywhere on your iPad, don't do it, write down, but the winner will get a lovely keys. Thank you. Okay, so what is the minimum age on Facebook, please? What is the minimum legal age on Facebook? 13. But in this country alone, 1.2 million girls between the ages of 10 and 12. I don't know where this statistic is from. Normally I would bluff it, but you're all quite knowledgeable. But I don't know where that statistic is from. 1.2 million daily, but it's not legal. 13, yeah. They are younger, but it's not legal. And in our school, Facebook is the most feared because of bullying. There is a safe school option for Facebook where the children can't directly message each other, which does tend to cut down the bullying. I can't remember the name. People are nodding at me. What's the maximum number of characters on a tweet?
140.
140. What's the definition of munch? Screen grab, thank you. Poke? Facebook poke. Get somebody's attention. And ping.
BBM attention grabbing.
Yeah, where you one-to-many when you flood and send things out. What is Flickr?
Photos.
All right, I'm making this afternoon harder. Google is the most popular search engine. What's the second? Yahoo. But YouTube is coming up very, very quickly behind that. Very, very quickly behind that. Facebook limits the number of friends you can have to 5,000. I don't think you've got any friends if you have 5,000 friends on Facebook. How many friends does the average user have? 30? 130? 530?
130.
130, well done, thank you. What is Ning? Social networking. What is AR?
Augmented reality.
Well done. Augmented reality.
Augmented reality.
What are QR codes?
Quick response.
Quick response, scan on it straight to whatever material you want. Excellent use in schools of QR codes at the moment. What is an RSS feed?
News.
The news. BBC straight to and updating. So that rapid response. Syndication. What is a tiny URL?
URL shortener.
A URL shortener, a web address shortener. What is a botnet? Oh, please let there be one that you don't know the answers to.
No, botnet, they're like hackers using to collect information.
Does anyone know what a botnet is?
No.
Okay.
It's just
No, it's global, I'm afraid, but I'm not going to tell you because you've got all the restaurants. We'll find out later on. And what is a morgue?
Massively multiplayer online.
Again, please, louder.
Massively multiplayer online role-playing game.
Yeah, massively multiplayer, a large game.
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, World of Warcraft. Okay, so that didn't prove my point. You were supposed to get about 5 right, not 12. Thank you very much. But actually, if we do this with our staff, it's a fun way of actually saying, normally, you don't need to know everything. But what you do need to know is actually where the limitations are and actually where the risks are. I'm a LinkedIn user. I don't use Twitter very much. I tweet from LinkedIn. But actually, I understand Twitter. I understand that there's no issue in terms of schools using Twitter. I understand we have one school that closed down Skype. I can't, for the life of me, understand what risk Skype would be to actually users as being as they have to be accepted and controlled. So again, it's taking away that fear factor, but showing teachers that they will never, ever know all of the applications and all of the environments online, but it's teaching them how to work with students and teaching students how to be safe. I can't believe you got that many right. This afternoon is definitely changing. A botnet is a collection of comprised computers connected to the internet. So, spreads it out. Okay. We are just beginning to actually look at tablets within our school. How many of you are looking to go down the mobile device route furthermore? Okay. For us, this is a very exciting time, and I'm just going to share with you YouTube. In fact, it might be in here. And Longfield Academy. Longfield Academy serves an area of deprivation in Kent. And there we go. And every single student now within Longfield has an iPad. It's not coming up? Oh, there we go. This video was done again by students. And it shows you some of the work that they're beginning to do at an early stage.
How much will it cost? So why should I work with the school scheme?
In the UK, we're moving much more to leasing equipment than purchasing. And we still have a charity that supports those students that can't afford it.
As part of my A-level coursework, I've got to do a reaction of books and samples. While I'm doing reaction, I've got to film it and then take it home and make notes from the video. Once I've got the notes, I'll then send it to my teacher so that she can mark it.
Student is recording for his A-level exams in science experiments. Come on here.
So that will be.
The student there is recording for his A-level exams the stages in terms of there. So actually in our assessment now, they are beginning to take multimedia in terms of student portfolios.
What are the chemical procedures they use for the course?
Okay, so more and more we are actually moving away from teachers' devices to learners' devices. Okay. And all this time we need to be constantly looking at what we want the learning to look like, not just the technology. Now, in terms of your schools, in terms of your own use, when you talk to colleagues and when we talk to colleagues historically, and ask them what benefit the technology was doing, it was generally, well, it excites the children. They were all motivational words. It engages the children. But what actually is it doing for the learning? And these words came through. Entertains the children, engages the children, embeds, excites, enriches. But actually we didn't have a dialogue that we could have from teacher to teacher, from teacher to leader. We didn't have a common language in the UK for actually articulating the impact that the technology has. So through the various projects that we did, we developed a language, and this is the author Martin Blows that's just going to share with you the language that we developed. I'll show you this screen first of all as well. We called this the E-words. And actually, it was just a very basic tool that gives examples, that shows actually how we discuss the learning that is taking place within our schools and colleges. we'll go back to this, but I'm just going to show you a short video from the creator of the eWords, and he'll explain the various stages.
The eWords model tries to develop a language for teachers to talk about how they're using technology in the classroom. And it's built around 5 key words: exchange, enrich, enhance, extend, and empower. And it asks teachers to think about what they're doing with technology in the classroom, both as teachers, about learners, and about how they're using it to develop creative expression in their students. So it's a model that can help teachers understand what it is they're doing now and where they might want to be moving to into the future. The eWords model first began with the Harnessing Technology initiative by the department, and it came out of their attempts to define what e-learning was. And at the time I put together a whole number of potential definitions of e-learning. And if you talk to teachers, they talk about the power of technology to engage, enthuse, entertain, extend, enhance, empower, embed, in all sorts of different e-words. But out of those, there were 5 that really struck me as key, and those 5 have been embedded into what we call the eWords model. If you talk to teachers, and then there was some other research done which generally when teachers talked about the use of technology, they were able to focus mainly on the motivational aspects. And at one time we talked about what was happening beyond motivation. How did ICT improve the learning beyond that? So the model sets out to try and create a language for talking about what we're doing with technology. And we've selected 5 of those e-words as what we think are the core ones. And at one end of that model, there's the notion of exchange, where teachers exchange one technology for another, and it's happened forever. Some of us who are older can remember Banda machines, which we exchanged for photocopiers. We've now exchanged overhead projectors for data projectors, and I suspect that will go on as technology goes onward as well. And so at one stage, the exchange is an important part of getting to grips with technology, and in many cases it makes teachers more effective and more efficient in what they're doing. But it doesn't necessarily change what's being learned, it just changes the way that learning might take place. The next level up is I think where many teachers are at the moment, which is what I'm calling enrich, which is where they're using things like interactive whiteboards and integrating sound, video, images, websites into their use of that technology, and makes the learning more engaging for the learners. And so we've got more learners, and if you talk to learners, they say they like electronic whiteboards because the images are larger, there's more sound effects, it's more interesting for them. But I suppose one has to ask the question, does it actually change what's being learned, and does it actually change the levels of attainment that comes out of that learning? And I've talked about teachers particularly, but you can look at the same thing with students' use of software. What I sometimes call the edutainment software, where more effort's gone into the sound, the whiz-bangs, than has gone into the concepts that underlie the learning. And you can see that often in drills and skills types of software. But it's a natural stage that I think many teachers go through when they're still getting to grips with the technology at an early stage. I think the next level is what I call enhance, and that's where the technology is actually enabling the teacher to deepen the learning for students by approaching things in slightly different ways. A good examples of the way that we can use software to help students understand how the Earth goes around the sun, and how the moon goes around the Earth, and how the phases of the moon change across the year. And there's some lovely software that does that modelling for you in a way that you couldn't possibly achieve without that sort of software. And that really I think helps students to understand the concepts more easily. So it actually deepens the learning. You might see it also, for example, in the use of digital video in PE lessons, where the teacher takes a video of somebody working at a particular skill, plays it back to the group immediately, and the group can then see how they can improve. So they've deepened the learning through the use of that technology. The next level in the model is the notion of extend, and we've redefined this recently to talk about extending both the content, process, and the location of learning. And this enables on the content, perhaps, for children to learn things that were previously not possible for them to learn. That could be skills, it could be particular content. If you take science examples, often the use of technology in science enables students to learn things that would be too dangerous for them to learn on their own, or too difficult for them to do without the technology. we know that more and more students are learning beyond the school. They're extending their learning beyond the confines of the school, and what we've called at the National College distributed learning, learning that's going on in the home, in libraries, from groups with friends, that's going on outside of the school. We can see some examples of this if we look at, for example, in the realms of digital video, that students are using the technology to maybe make webcams and time-lapse photography over time, so they can see a seed growing over a number of weeks, then quickly play it through and see the stages of the seed developing in a way that wasn't possible before. And they're learning new things, new concepts in this case, on new skills in using that sort of technology. I suppose what we might call the top end of the model, but I'll come back to that, is the notion of empowerment. And that's where we're putting the learning in the hands of the students themselves. Now, we might see that working in several ways. In some cases, it might be the notion of, what we say, project-based learning, where students are given a problem to solve, they work collaboratively in a group, they use the internet as a research tool, they find the information they need, they redesign a way of presenting that information in a new way for their colleagues or their peers. The other way of looking at that is the notion of personalising learning through learning platforms, where the teacher's role is to put the content, the learning pathways that the students can then select according to their own ability, their learning styles, their needs, and so they've got all sorts of pathways through that. So they're empowered to make decisions about the way they're actually learning. And again, we can see that often where schools have given students a lot of responsibility perhaps, again in digital video, where they might be asked to film something and they write their own storyboards, scripting, do the filming, edit it, produce it, add the music, titles and the whole thing.
Stop there. So again, our issue in terms of the amount of technology we put into schools is that for the majority of the time it was merely being used as an exchange. It was merely clearer on the board than they could see. And actually, how do we look at applications to take them on? Now, a very simple tool, and I'm sure you have your own, but we found we could use this in several ways. One, we could take a piece of technology and actually say, if we are just exchanging, what do we need to do in terms of people becoming familiar with the technology, interactive workboards? If we are to empower our learners through this technology, how can that application be used? So we take a simple model that all teachers use, and we could use it for a piece of technology. We could also use it for a subject area. In literacy, exchange using a simple word processor. Enhance, I might stick some images in there. Enrich, I might link to a different internet, a source, use it as a wiki. Extend, I may have conversations and do the quad blogging, where again, somebody is adding to my piece of work. And I might empower. And actually, what does that mean for the author in terms of their control, their content, their responsibility? So it gave us a tool to continually push teachers in terms of their understanding and in terms of use of technology. You've heard me for quite a while now, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a break. I'm just going to ask you on your tables to discuss, actually, within your schools, within your institutions, within your classrooms, can you first of all think where the majority of practice is in terms of that? Is it mainly at the empowering end, or is it, as we are, I think, still predominantly mainly at the exchange? And then I'd ask you to share with your colleagues one example from your own institution of one of the topper ends. Actually, where are we actually getting the in-depth learning? So I'm just going to give you 10 minutes and then we'll take some feedback. Hopefully this will be an opportunity for you also to share with colleagues some of the work that's going on in yours. So one, first of all, in terms of your own institutions, where is the majority of practice? And actually, secondly, share with colleagues one example of that higher end learning. Okay, we'll just have a, and I will ask the group to share it with us in a moment. A comment from the floor was, if you don't mind me saying, a comment from the floor was that actually, if we constantly talk about technology and not look at the other aspects, such as the creative, the painting, the drawings, the different types of learning, then we're missing a trick. Can I just say, by no means am I saying that technology should be in every minute of the day, in every lesson, and the only opportunity. Absolutely not. Technology should only be used when it adds that passion, that drama, that usefulness. If it makes life easier, quicker, or better, then I think technology should be used. But I think when teachers are beginning to adopt technology, and when it is new to them as a profession, then actually they need to become comfortable and confident users of the technology. And for that to happen, the majority of teachers are generally in the exchange area. That's okay for a short amount of time, but going back to the point made here, is that if those teachers stay in that exchange area, for the students, it takes all that joy away. Because the teachers are, and we've seen it, you may have seen it, have you seen those teachers that are very, very, very proud of themselves for doing a PowerPoint? And no matter how whiz-bangy it is and how asleep the children are, they will rigorously get to the end of that PowerPoint. Now that is okay as long as it happens for 2 lessons, for 3 lessons. If a child is subjected to that for 6 months every day, then we do have an issue. So I absolutely agree. I personally, if in schools on an average week, I would say would get out different types of technologies for 25%, but only when it adds to my learning, and only because I'm confident. For we have to accept that for the masses of teachers to become confident with it, then we have to, I think, give them a tool to really reflect on their own practice. And actually a tool so that we can say, the PowerPoint is wonderful, but where are we going with this? And how is it adding to learning? And if they won't get out of PowerPoint, I suggest you take the fuse out of their laptop and let them not have technology for a while and see how they get on. Okay, so please don't assume that I want technology in everything. I don't. I think there is much more to learning, but I think we do need to be very, very selective about where we use technology. Otherwise, you will have a dip in standards because all the other aspects of the child are not catered for. But let's get some examples from yourselves. I walked in and heard stories about empowerment and engagement and extension and enrichment. Anyone like to share, first of all, where they think the majority of their practice is, but also a good example as well? Please volunteer, so I don't have to pick. Thank you.
Well, in my school, it's not all the time, but many of the teachers, they prepare PowerPoints. That's exchange.
So a lot of people still at exchange.
Yes. We can find examples of empowerment, but if we are talking about the majority of the time, I think we are more in the exchange. Maybe enrich a little bit, but not more than that.
Okay, and in terms of empowerment, you have examples within?
Well, I think in the science labs, there is more of empowerment because the children receive a questionnaire where they need to think for themselves more, they need to see results and interpret them. So we take them more to analyze, and that empowers them more.
And again, it's pockets of good practice in a department.
Right. Right.
How are you sharing that? How are you supporting the schools that are mainly exchanging to? Do they see lessons? Do they?
You mean between teachers? We do not. You know, sometimes in the teacher's room, a teacher will informally talk about, oh, I gave a very nice class, but we don't have like a regular place where we exchange good practices.
Okay, so that may be something
that we can do.
that we can take on. Okay, any other people? Yes.
I think that our school is divided into two parts. One part is still in the exchange stage, and the other is in the enhanced stage. Mainly the enhanced stage are the youngest teachers that are more open to the technology and more open to the speed of the technology. Because of that, they are more accepting this.
And any practice further up the scale, or is it very early stages still?
Maybe in the empowerment of one or two classes are trying to get in the empowerment stage. Not all of them.
And from the UK practice, I think a year in that exchange is okay. If we're not pushing post that, I think we can get some very bad practice we see as well. So, any others? So the majority still feel mainly with some shining lights that we need to look at the top. Okay, this afternoon what we will be looking at is strategies for supporting teachers in terms of sharing best practice, in terms of provision. And as I say, this is a tool that we just use as a dialogue with teachers for them to reflect on their own practice. More complicated tools, I have put photocopies of examples of what we call a self-review framework, which is school-wide. And I will share that with you this afternoon. We've used this not only in the UK but other countries as well. What you have on your tables is just an extract that looks at teaching and learning. But we do need tools at school level and also leadership level that we'll look at this afternoon if the pockets of good practice are to become uniform across the school. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Do you know high schools?
Yes.
Would you put them in the empowerment stage? I'm not from there.
Yeah.
You can say.
Okay, is anyone from High Tech High? I think High Tech High. I think what it does have is that it constantly questions itself. High Tech High originally had sort of very personalised spaces for students to learn, and that didn't work. So then they opened those personalised spaces out more into open hubs. I see High Tech High as a bit like Madonna, that they keep reinventing themselves constantly to be at the forefront. My apologies for Madonna reinventing herself. I think any institution, you are a band within that. I think you will get practitioners that are at the top end down to 3. So you'll have sort of the good and the great. I would put High Tech High from the Enrich to the Empower, personally, as an institution. Within there, I'm sure that there would be examples of exchange and examples of bad practice, but as an institution, I would put them at the top end. Tomorrow, when you go and visit Neil Hopkin, and you may think differently, but in terms of use of technology and the learner, I would also put practice in Neil's school from the Enrich up. Doesn't look as shiny as High Tech High, but actually all from the learner and all to make empowered, powerful learners and independent learners. But yes, top end. And I like them, they keep changing. They keep constantly changing. Okay, so we're going to break for lunch shortly. I'm sure you'll all be relieved. We're going to break for lunch shortly. But in terms of technology, even as you are the pioneers, and even though you got 14 out of 15 on my short quiz, hopefully there is something new for you to actually think about. And I think as change champions, what we need to do is not only look on our own practice and our own understanding and our own expertise. That is one skill in terms of developing ourselves. But this afternoon we will look at actually how do we support and develop others. Because one person will not change an institution. You need a critical mass and an army to change institutions. So how can we've had a UK government at the moment, so we're very aggressive in terms of our school talk at the moment. But actually, how do we support others? A different skill entirely. And as leaders, I'm just going to ask you and leave you with this to think about over the lunchtime. These are the technologies we are seeing coming into our UK schools, and I'm sure you are as well. This is now global. There are no limits. Best practice is shared everywhere. These are the technologies that are coming into our schools. The role that you have and the role that leaders have is actually looking at those technologies and saying what it has a high probability of swamping the markets. Tablets, mobile devices, portable, gaming. What are the industries that are coming on board? What are the technologies that are coming on board? And then reflecting on actually what impact will they have. There will be technologies that come at us that actually have very, very little impact on learning, that don't add to that learning experience. And there will be the simplest of technologies that will come on board. And actually, how do we get the greatest impact out of those? In terms of the next technology that you may take on, what would it be? And what impact will it have on learning? Any thoughts?
The difficulty is that it changes so quickly that we're using an iPad now, but next year we may decide to use something else because there's something else that's been developed that's better, that's cheaper, that's more accessible.
I think we need to group when we're thinking as well. I mean, in terms of there's iPad, there's Toshiba, there's a phone, there's this, there's that, there's the other. In terms of mobile, I think the potential is huge. And you're right, something will be cheaper, something will be quicker, something will be better. But do we wait for those to come on board, or do we make the most use? In schools, we reckon, and in industry, that less than 10% of a computer's functionality is actually used. So actually, I would prefer to keep this for 10 years, maybe not, and get used to it and explore its full potential, than constantly renewing and investing in new technologies as well. I'm just going to leave you that to think about. Daniel, are we ready for lunch?
Yes, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. I will try and make this as colourful, less wordy as I can, and also having gone to BET for 12 years, I will try and give you some tips to save your sanity. When you go there. I go to a lot of conferences internationally, and wouldn't you guess it, the one that petrifies me the most is the one that's on my home turf in London. It is busy, and it is, as I was just speaking to Daniel, quite a hard sell to you. So we will look at what's happening at BET tomorrow, but it is very much worth taking the time to either go online and look at what actually you do wish to see, or make a list of actual products, information that you want to go and look at. There are 30,000 people that go to BET every day during its time, and you will need to A, know where you're going and plan beforehand, and B, be quite ruthless in terms of what you intend to see. I go to BET for 5 days, including Saturday. I'm not expecting sympathy, and I won't get round all of BET. So I think if you do have 10 minutes later on today at the end of this session tonight, if you're not too brain dead, just make a list of the top 5 things that you want to see and maybe 2 sessions that you want to attend. There are 3 exits. Please use them as and when you feel you've had enough. But we'll look at what's on in BEC later on tomorrow. And Neil's school that you will see in the morning, I'm going to show you. Neil is quite well regarded, well, very well regarded in the UK in terms of learning technologies, spaces and change management. And I think you'll learn an awful lot, but have lots of questions to take to Neil tomorrow as well. So I just want to give you some background into Neil's pedigree, as it were, and what Neil's interests are, so that you're really poised to challenge him tomorrow, as you have done with me earlier as well. I've never had so many discussions about learning. I think fantastic group going on here. I'm already talking too much, so I'm just going to show you some pictures. Okay. And it has been a long, warm day, so I thought we'd look at design. I know this isn't specifically technology. I know this isn't specifically change management. We will look at that at the end. But actually, in terms of looking at the impact on learners, the impact on learning, and I've had a couple of conversations with people here today, the research in terms of design and spaces on learning has a greater impact than any other factor. Unfortunately, including teachers and including technology. Now, I'm not saying put a child in a beautiful room and they will automatically learn. But in terms of the pieces that go to make up the jigsaw, it's a very, very important piece of the jigsaw that I think we just don't think about. And we don't think about it enough. So I just wanted to share with you some examples and see how we can go. These pictures on the left are actually done very, very cheaply. This is from Denmark. We worked a lot with the Danish embassy because they have done the majority of research into conditions for learners, not only light, not only temperature, but actually in terms of colour, design, some fantastic work going on in Denmark. And perhaps one of the most famous schools is a school called Hellerup in Denmark. I don't know if any of you have heard of Hellerup. But a very expensive design school, no money spared, all put in. This, however, is not. This was an old Victorian building. And Hellerup. Hey, I put it on the link. Hellerup. This school is Ordrup School. And again, case studies and videos are on the presentation, all linked up, so you can go and explore. But this school actually was an old Victorian school, and the designers were called in because the teachers, they'd tried to open up for double classrooms, and the teachers were still teaching and actually building back up the classroom walls, and still speaking in very old-fashioned ways. And the designers came in, and the teachers told them in no uncertain terms that they'd had enough of architects and designers, and that they were to go and do their thing. Roseanne Bosch, who did the designing, I like to call her Tina Turner, she reminds me of. She's a determined woman. So she just moved into the school for a week and did simple things. This here is called a kidney carpet, and it came out of the fact that actually each teacher was given a different task. So one teacher was given a piece of carpet and took it with their students. And actually they had very long corridors, and what they did was cut pieces of carpet. Some schools do it over here with the, do you know the hula hoops? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Some schools do that. So you take a carpet or you take a hula hoop, you throw it on the ground in the corridor, and all of a sudden the noisy corridor becomes the place where people are working, so you walk past them. That passive supervision that design has. These are old industry tubes at the top. Again, very noisy corridors, very few private spaces for children to concentrate, to learn and to study. Now, when the children would used to scream down this corridor, actually children respect children, and children respect that they will be sitting in there with their shoes off tomorrow reading a book, and that is a place you walk past quietly. one of the simplest things we did in our schools, you know when the bell rings and the corridors and everybody charges everywhere. One head teacher a few years back, actually just painted a line down the middle of the corridor. And obviously because of traffic, all the children walked down this side and all the children walked down that side. Now that would have taken months and months of shouting and supervision and constantly going on to the children, and one line, it was automatic. Changed it automatically. So design can have very simple solutions. Down the bottom here, who was ever told off for staring out the window at school? Yes, well, actually, it's done us good, because it's much better for you. And they couldn't afford to bring the windows down. So what this school did was take the seats up. And actually all the students now, the teacher is on a lower platform, the students are higher up with the natural light, feeling privileged on a stage. Very, very simple to do. This is my favourite. I'm slightly, as a few people have called me, I'd say attention deficit disorder. I can't sit still for very long. I haven't been to the cinema since I was 7, and I've never had a desk. I can't sit down. I think you're all being very good today sitting down. I work standing up. And one of the, like the carpet idea, these children were given packs of post-it notes and told to go around their old school and stick them on anything they liked. Don't stick them on things they didn't like, but stick them on things they liked. And they had one tatty table that was children's standing height, that had a small lip around the end so that nothing flew off. And the children loved this because they wanted to collaborate at standing height. So this is one of my favourite tables. Standing height, can be adjustable. Children can get up underneath it and collaborate and work. Again, some very, very simple things to do that are impacted. The diagram over in the right, when we were building new schools, we made the wrong choice initially of flattering architects' egos and having wonderful entrances and lights and as you walked into the school. And we got very angry very quickly. The impact on learning happens in this room. So you don't care if you've walked through the golden gates and the golden arches, if your little bottom is hurting because you're sitting on a £6 chair that was designed for children before the war. In the UK, our head teachers' chairs cost between £400 and £600. Our teachers' chairs cost £200 plus because it's their workplace and because we have a legal responsibility to make sure that they have ergonomically designed chairs. The average chair in our schools 2 years ago for students was £6. Because students are visitors in our school. So we went a little bit mad about the chairs. I was known as the mad chairwoman for a while with the Guardian. But it's that area we need to look at. When I was a teacher, which wasn't too far back, I remember going in and constantly moving tables and chairs. And didn't have a classroom set out for that. It was throw them to the side and do what you want. And again, we need to encourage, not only when we're looking at the technology, but have we got the right environment to actually support that type of learning as well. It's very difficult to be collaborative if we're all in rows. Anyway, I thought some pictures might cheer you up. And design matters. I do not mean to offend anybody here, but if you have little boys in your school, the diagram at the top, a toilet, you may know that they sell little flies that you can stick onto the toilet. And would you know it increases the accuracy by 80%? I will not do any actions, but I live on my own with a girlfriend, and we even have a fly in the toilet after I discovered this, because I'm not taking any chances. 80% it increases. A hospital, if I clone myself, we've gone through this morning, but if I clone myself and we go in for an operation, and my clone, obviously not me, doesn't have any natural sunlight window, she will be in there for 5 days, generally. I, on the other hand, if I have natural light and natural window, I'll probably be out after 3. Now, if natural light has that much impact on our health and our recovery, why aren't we utilising it in our learning? Why do we make the computers not face the windows? Why don't we have children looking out? We're constantly putting computers against walls or actually shutting out the windows. Design can go bad as well. The famous butterfly ballot that George Bush got in on, because 46% of the ballots were spoiled because people couldn't figure out the design. And finally, at the top, if we add the power of design, and it's very rarely done, to the power of technology. This is a pub in London, and I think there are some in America and everywhere else as well, that after having a drink, if you go to the bathroom, you're encouraged to go around a racetrack. Should you get to the end of the racetrack safely, you can go home. If you've managed to crash, a taxi number comes up on the screen and asks you if you'd like to call it. It makes all experiences fun and safe. So, yes. So design does matter. And when we think about the virtual environment, we do have private spaces where we can message. Our emails are generally private. We do have privileged spaces, communities that you'll be invited into. One exactly here, that actually you can share, collaborate, and incubate those ideas safely. And public spaces where you're happy for things to go out. In terms of schools, do we provide complementary spaces for those spaces to happen? Do we provide private spaces where children just need to take their laptop or artwork and actually just focus on that? Are there privileged spaces in terms of collaboration? It might be, we're going down the route of a lot of Skype cafes at the moment in terms of moving forward. And public spaces. Again, those are just 2 examples. Online, and these go directly to the website on the PowerPoint, but these are videos where the head teacher talks you through the impact that they have actually had on the students there. That was done for a very small amount of money. And more, we talked about learning today, but actually, increasingly, those students that we said would have 17 jobs within their first 20 years, increasingly, we are becoming much more fluid and mobile in the way that we work. And we are moving from the office, theirs is in the city, to the city is the office. I do have an office in Birmingham. I don't in London. I work in several places, including the British Library, the Commonwealth, the here, the there, the everywhere, Starbucks, the Tube, the Flat. We are increasingly finding different ways of working. And are we actually providing that flexibility and that control in our schools? We talked earlier about students navigating their own paths. Students find that difficult, to just go on and take control of their own learning. It's like the fact they don't want to learn 24 hours a day. We shouldn't expect them to do it. And likewise, we should be preparing them for a much more fluid workspace when they go through. So wherever we are and whatever we're doing with the technology, we must begin to think, actually, is the environment set up to do it? So if we look at the top, attention and practice. It doesn't allow for much production of spaces, whereas actually you only need a small box in a raised corner. It doesn't really allow for collaboration with a lot of moving chairs. Discussion is sideways. And inquiry, well, besides ask your friend next to you, there's not a lot of opportunity for that. Whereas actually if we begin to look at the spaces, if we begin to look at the areas and have a balance of, which again is very demanding on the teachers, they feel that they can't control 6 different activities. It doesn't have to be, it can be 1. But actually if we begin to look have we got areas for all of those capabilities and all of those ways of working to take place? Again, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a hula hoop on the floor. It can be a wooden box on the side where actually that is your speaking corner. We have Hyde Park speaking corner, and if you stand on this box in Hyde Park, you can talk publicly for 10 minutes until somebody tells you to leave. But again, very simple things make a difference in learning. Now, there was a programme that we started when we began to look at the pedagogy and actually if the environments were fit for purpose. Have any of you got an interest in science? This applies to all, but if you have an interest in science, we had a project called Project Faraday. And our science labs are the most expensive rooms within our schools, as I would imagine they are with yours. Our science curriculum is possibly the most out of date. We are still teaching children to have Bunsen burners and add this and that. And in the real science world, that rarely happens now. So we were teaching a curriculum in a very expensive way that is actually out of date for our students as well. So we began to work with some scientists to see actually what they do in real life. What is science? It's not the recall of facts. It's not add this to that, heat that up, burn this, and I could tell you stories about science experiments, but anyway. But actually, what are the skills they're doing? And if we think about it, debating, thinking, presenting, making, observing, reading, performing, documenting, experimenting. And experimenting is a small percentage of actually that thing. So we moved from schools with 12 science labs to schools with 2 science labs. And actually different areas for the other science activities to take place. I'm not sure about your institutions, but in our secondary schools, sometimes as little as rooms can be used as little as 15% in a week. But we're heating them for 100%, we're paying for them for 100%, we're not using them. The utilisation of spaces as well is very poorly used. So actually this is a good exercise in any curriculum area, whether it be literacy, mathematics, science, to actually think about what are the skills and what are the percentage of time to use them. These are 3 academies, and again, computer suites for programming. There's D&T at the top. Now, normally you'd be used to seeing saws, chains, welding irons. I can talk confidently, my dad is a grinder. Design and technology. And again, it's having the resources to take in there. The board meeting, and actually engineering, with some students making cars. Do we have available spaces, and are we exciting these spaces for this? I should have taken you all to Starbucks to do this, shouldn't I? It would have been a much more living example. We could have walked to the British Museum, it's not far. And this is a tool that we began to use because whether we're looking at spaces or whether we're looking at technology, actually it's the pedagogy and the practice that we are trying to change. And I heard some people today speaking about being reflective practitioners, and it's the fact that we have to, I'm looking for the lady, it's the fact that actually we need to question constantly about learning. And we're beginning to move into leadership, and this is one tool that is just very simple. I'm not into a lot of words. It's very simple and actually begins to see where we are. Are we teacher-centric or are we more learner-centric? I'm just going to ask the gentleman, can you give us that phrase that you said earlier outside? Sorry.
About the DNA of teachers and moving from teaching-based learning to learning-based teaching.
And it's that culture as well. And again, that's a very big jump. And for some teachers, if we lose them, that's too big a jump. So actually, what are the steps along the way? What are the small bites that we can take to move this forward? In terms of progression, in the UK, we teach children from September to September, and everybody in my class was the same age as me. Which is very helpful when it comes up to Facebook that everybody's 40 in a row. It's very wonderful. Now we're beginning to say, actually, it's what stage you're at. And we're beginning to move into more vertical tutoring and students supporting other students. We've got evidence that head teachers that work with other head teachers not only improve their school but improve their own practice. And the same is true for children when they are supported. Not only will the younger child learn from the older one, but the older child will improve their understanding as well. But again, this gives a jump, an intermediary. So from the teacher role to sage on the sage, like I am, to guide by the side, there is an intermediary. So it's that big jump, unexpected. Again, timetabling. We discussed earlier, if you have 40-minute periods, you lose a day a week. By the time the children have moved, by the time they've emptied it out, can't be afforded. And actually, when do you really get into something? You'll see tomorrow, Neil Hopkin is talking about negotiated learning. What do? The children come in with a passion, whether it be motor racing, whether it be butterflies, whether it be astronauts. And they develop the project around their passion. And are we doing that? And when we do that, it's primary, so they're up to 12 years old. Yeah, tomorrow. But I think the application... 40 minutes. It's generally secondary schools. Primary schools tend to be around an hour. A little bit longer. An hour and a half. Better for you, better for you. Some schools are trying whole day lessons or whole weeks. And impact. We had one school in the Midlands region that did mathematics purely for 3 months. Then English purely for 3 months. I know, but what if it's a subject you don't like? You've had no escape for 3 months. It's too much, too much. I don't mind half a day on something I don't like, but not 3 months. And student groupings. We were obsessed with having small groups, but actually our bigger classrooms with multiple teachers is having a much bigger impact. You don't have to be the expert in everything. I can take the lead one day, watch a practitioner, you can put weak teachers with stronger teachers, and actually for our professional development, double-sized classrooms and 2 or 3 teachers is having a huge impact on learning. So these are just some tools. There's a full set, you can have all of these for people to think through in terms of their organisation, and you can map where you are, which is the school that was in blue, to where you want to be in 12 months' time. So just a very simplistic tool to help move forward. Okay. Yeah.
This thinking was what informed the new curriculum in South Africa. That's what they tried to introduce under the heading of curriculum 2005, which has come to fruition in 2005, which has since been completely abandoned. Why? Because nobody really knew what they were talking about.
Okay.
And least of all the teachers. So
it was an ideology but without the change.
Well, they didn't institute the training that should have gone with it. They did an orientation to the new curriculum, but they didn't train teachers. So, for example, where you're talking about learning centred, that was interpreted as leave the learners on their own to get on with their work, which they did literally. They went outside. And there were some other things on there. I mean, I'm just looking at it now, and Ariela's laughing. Oh, they're the large classes, for example. Well, I mean, our schools have large classes in half-size classrooms. So they've got 70 kids in a class with 1 teacher.
Not 1 teacher.
You can't do that kind of teaching in such a big group, in such a small space.
No, space is horrible.
And so all those kinds of issues, I mean, they have 35-minute periods, but it takes 10, 15 minutes for them to walk to one class to another because there's so many of them. So they're banging into each other down the passage.
For me, I much prefer 2-hour slots with timetable.
Well, they tried doing that. They couldn't get that right either. Okay. This one wanted that period and that. Team teaching is a no-no. It doesn't think like that, but it needs a lot of training. You can't just expect teachers to change feet in mid-air.
No, and people will revert back. People will revert back, but I think as well it's important to constantly push. But again, you can't throw initiative at people without any discussion or support. But if I urge you to get one thing out, if you go back, it's a pot of paint, and think about where things go. You all know your working schools. You walk in a school, and before you get to their MIS systems, or before you get to, you can tell from the feel of a school, actually. And I think that goes much, much further in terms of design. And I don't have shares in the fly thing, but if you do want them, I know where you can get them from. Okay, last leg, and I didn't pay you, but it was quite a nice lead. You know where you want to be, but how do you get the rest of them to come? We have a book over here called Lead, Follow, or Get Out the Way, and I think it is. I think all three are quite good in terms of that. So I'm not going to ask you to lead, follow, or get out of the way, but I'm just going to share some thoughts with you, and then I will give you time to reflect and talk. Okay. Whenever we are, this was from a gentleman in Denmark that I pinched it off. I normally accredit people, I can't remember his name for the life of me. Niels Ahlstrom. And Niels was saying that whenever you're doing any type of project, whether it be technology, whether it be environment, whether it be community, actually every project has a timeline that you have to get into. And the problem is that actually the time for decisions runs out. But actually your understanding of ideas and thinking begins to grow. So what is critical in any early project is to get the time here and delay the decisions as much as possible. And get that time and that thinking in there, in terms of the research, the people, the energy. This is where we need to bring people on board, even if it's just to brainstorm and get their ideas, rather than actually involving them after we've already had to make the decisions. So early involvement in project, and it also makes it theirs. When's the last time anybody washed a hire car? If it's not yours, you don't own it, you don't look after it. So if you are trying to get people, not tokenistically, but get ideas and encourage ideas and bring people in, and put off decisions as much as you can. Although I couldn't put off the iPad 2 any longer, I just have to have it. And what are leaders focusing on, and what are leaders' constant issues, and probably since the beginning of time. The National College for School Leadership does surveys every year in terms of its head teachers, their perceptions, and what's important to them. And they were asked what the skills for leaders of today and tomorrow were. And to me, these two stick out, and I don't think will have changed in the last 10 years, and I don't think will change in the next 20. Developing a learning culture and organisation. Developing that passion that was in this room that you can't generally push onto people. Developing the need to want to make learning better. And also implementing change and improvement successfully. SLICT was one of the largest programs in this country, 14,000 school leaders, and judged by X, Y, and Z as good. But actually, if you went and spoke, as we did, to the classroom teachers within those successful SLICT schools, only 1 out of 7 could tell you what the head teacher's vision was. Only 1 out of 7 could tell you what the school was trying to achieve. And in all schools, actually, are we translating the ethos, the vision, to our practitioners? Or are we just giving them kits and telling them that they need to be better with things? What are we actually trying to achieve? And you'll have all seen this. You'll have all seen this. The innovators, yourselves. The tweeters that we should all follow. Is anyone on Twitter? Any tweeters? Yeah, me too. I'm obsessed between the hours of 12 at night and 2 in the morning. But again, tweet is the best professional development that some people will have. You get 10 good ideas coming at you every day that you can sift through. There's a lovely history program at the moment. I don't have the details, but somebody's going through their granddad's diary and actually tweeting the events from the day. And again, that living thing, that wanting to bring on. So you're the innovators, and now we have methods, whether it be Moodle, whether it be shared videos, whether it be Tweet, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be anything. We have the resources to share them. The early adopters will come with you. They'll come anyway. This is the bit where we lose them. And how do we get these people here? Quite frankly, you'll never get these, so don't worry about it. They just don't come. They're sucked, as I like to call them. But some people are more gentle. They won't come. But how do we actually take the passion from the innovators and spread it to the early adopters? Because innovators as well will get bored. And then they don't want to share that learning. It's not at the peak when they're interested in what they're doing. So, just a question for you. Whether you be a change champion looking after many schools, or whether you be a person in the school actually trying to make change, when do you stop to share your practice with others? And how do you share your practice with others? Or are you just getting better and better and leaving others behind? When do you share your practice? Is it when you're really confident with it? How do you share it? Or are you actually shooting off and leaving others behind? Just 2 minutes to talk. Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes, promise. To wrap the discussions, I will give you extended talking time in a while. That's your worst nightmare, that you actually set off a discussion and it goes, and then you have to jump in to. So I'll let you back into those discussions in a short while. Where do we think we are? You are change champions. You are innovators. What is the most effective way that you have found to share practice with those others that you're trying to bring on board? Or were you talking about the cinema tomorrow? Okay. Okay, the route there is very complicated. So what's the best way that you have found to share best practice within your schools and institutions? Can I pick on somebody, or have you all had enough? Leg in the middle, please. Yes, was that hand up? I'm taking anything at the moment. Just hands, sneezing, I should be in there.
I've been saying so many negative things about what we do, but we've got a thing called cluster meetings, where you would get teachers together once a month or once every 2 months from different schools coming together, and they share their own best practices. And we find that really works because teachers don't often get a chance to talk to each other. Schools are spread that geographically far away, and that seems to really work. You would have a theme or a topic that people engage with, and in that way that seems to help.
Thank you.
We have a new principal, and I really like that she makes you feel that are your ideas, not her ideas. And I think that's very intelligent because she opened them in meetings, and it's like she really makes you feel that it was your idea, even though it was not your idea. So you start feeling that it's your project. And everybody is feeling the same thing. But that's, I think it's her ability and her personality that it's not so easy to imitate.
But that's one of the best leadership
Yes.
qualities. If you can, the higher power, if you can persuade somebody it's theirs and give it to them, then it becomes that. We have a similar thing. Have you got teach meets in your countries at the moment?
They started now in Senegal.
They started there. Petrified me the first time I went to someone and someone told me that they were going to throw a kangaroo at me if I was boring, dull, or trying to sell anything.
It has to be 3 minutes.
3 minutes and the kangaroo comes at you. I did say that it would go straight back at the person that threw it, but that's just more my personality, I think, than anything else. So we have teachers' collaborations, leadership and that ownership as well. Are there any of you using virtual tools to communicate?
Yeah, I believe a lot about the virtual. Obviously, the challenge is when you go virtual, you'll be sharing with people who are also on virtual. So, for example, I am on Twitter, and when there was Ning, I was on Ning, and so, and that's great for those people who are already sharing. So the challenge is, how do you get teachers who are not so keen on social networking to get into social networking? How do you show them the added value? And that's where you need to sort of show in presentations or in workshops what are the potential, what the possibilities with that, and to inspire them to get in. So for example, with my team at ORT, where we don't run a school there, but we run professional development of teachers at schools, with my team, who also wasn't so much computer and going into Twitter and things like that, it's basically coming from a professional development, let's say in Singapore, I would present them a video from that specific visit that I had, and I would say to them, read some more on my blog. So I also have blogging.
So you give them a bit?
I give them a bit and interest them. For example, on my blog, there was really amazing idea that Singapore is Asian countries are implementing lesson study, and we had a discussion about it. And I said, go onto the blog and look more. You can watch the video, and I've got comments, I've got emails. And what's interesting is that instead of commenting in the post itself, so there's still a long way to go. But you see what I'm saying?
They're happy to give you the comment, but they don't want everybody
publicly.
else.
I receive emails about it, but not. And that's the challenge, to get them into,
and it is
sharing.
But a lot of time, video and Skype is not threatening because it doesn't feel captured. It just feels more like a discussion as well.
The thing is that if you keep virtual, then you're broadening the gap between more literate, digitally literate teachers and the ones who are in the first stage, let's say, here. Right? So you broaden rather than bridging.
The digital gap is bigger.
What we do in Argentina school is once a year, at the end of the school year, we have a kind of exhibition, let's call it. All the teachers are invited, and the school principals choose 4 or 5 best examples of teaching practices, maybe more innovative or which globally involved other schools, other classes, or some kind of special activity. And the author or the teacher who was in charge shows this, she has, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes to show, as we do here, that we show our school, but in that case it's your class practice. So all the teachers in your school, which maybe 200 teachers are watching you, right? And you can show them. And the authorities encourage this, that, well, she did this, you can do it. And this is the people I work with every day, and they know me for 20 years, so they know that if I could do it, they could do it too. It's not an expert coming, but it's one of their colleagues, so the person, they have tea every morning, so they feel closer in the possibility to achieve such a class or an experience, and this has good results.
Good to hear good results, as you said there with your class as well. And I thought it was nice at the front somebody mentioned those corridor discussions that you have, that this went really well. And actually, those can be the most spontaneous. Any schools use students to actually deliver training?
I mean, one of the things that we found with whatever it is that whatever innovation happens, is for the kids to get excited about it. So if you're teaching a poetry lesson and you using YouTube clips and you're using wikis or whatever it happens to be, it's very soon that the kids will say to one class will say to the other class, you know what, we did all this, and the other class will put pressure on the other teachers to be doing the same kind of thing. I mean, I think that we found that's really made a huge difference, and certainly with the iPad program, that's
You've got those in Johannesburg as well. How long have you had the iPads in the school?
Well, we're just about to start this.
We follow you. Are you on Twitter?
Sorry, tomorrow.
Are you on Twitter?
Minus 2 months.
No, but we are also on the Facebook students talk with each other and inform other and which teacher has the best ideas and which ideas we have to improve about the teacher they're talking.
So students evaluating
Yeah,
teachers and
evaluating-
teacher practice.
Yeah, but they are this is their initiatives, not our.
Oh.
Yeah, the student council.
They give you scary world, but the students either creating that culture of envy that I want to go into that class and actually this is happening and that's not happening yours. Student evaluations, we've had similar, but maybe not in such a positive way. A lot of students will video their teachers now if they don't think it's good enough. We are having issues with that as well. And students' passion, if you can capture that passion, but also being unafraid to use them as trainers. We had one school in North Liverpool that's doing this gaming academy, and they started to, the teachers put it on as an enrichment activity, so there was no pressure, it was optional, it wasn't curriculum, it wasn't assessed. They were learning it at the same time as they thought, as their students. 5 students got really quite keen on this and must have literally not slept all weekend and came back in and had finished the whole course for gaming. And then those 5 students became the tutors for the class, supported by the adults, obviously, to control and manage any situation. But the content was delivered for a term by the students, to much the relief of the teachers when they realised that the work they'd been planning for 2 months was done by a 13-year-old on a weekend. But again, it's capturing that passion and also having a culture where it's okay for a student to know more than you do. Rikesh Patel, I shall never forget him. He sorted out my IT systems for years. He was in year 4, he was 9 years old, and he saved me calling out an engineer. I remember him to this day. He probably remembers me being as I gave him some very wrong RE information and he had a row with a vicar about it. That was my faux pas. Now, through all of this, we can look at the situations that we have, and we can try and improve them. We can try and make them incrementally better. But actually, if we do that, we are making things incrementally better. And sometimes we just have to actually think what we want in the end. 2 people have said to me today, sometimes you just have to go for it with that determination. And we found that actually when you think what you want learning to be like, and then you work back from that and the processes, what's needed in place, what are the people needed, then actually you get a high impact. When we look at the problems and issues that we have in terms of the class sizes or the lack of technology or as is 5 years old and move forward, we get smaller impact. And this is one I just like. I do like my action plans, but mine tend to be pretty pictures everywhere that nobody can understand. And I think this is a simple tool for when we're taking anything on board. We get vision, skills, the incentives, not necessarily financial, maybe professional, resources and action plans. If they're all in place, we get success. If we take away the vision, and if we haven't got that vision communicated, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, passionate people can articulate visions clearly because they are used to telling people about it. But if we haven't got that, we've got confusion. If we don't have the skills, we've just got anxiety. And again, somebody said to me today, when you lose a teacher, you've lost them. If that teacher confidence is knocked and they feel not sage on the stage, but actually lion in the cage type of thing, then you will never get them back on board. So again, it's there. Without incentives, we get slow change. If you are the teacher that makes the most out of this projector, you will be the first to get the interactive whiteboard. You were the one that took the interactive whiteboard, you'll be the first to get the tablets. Getting that race culture within schools. Without action plans, we have false starts and we are doing things again and again and again. We had 6 schools in Oxford once doing the same project just because they weren't talking to each other. And again, it's sharing that learning to make sure that they are doing different projects and moving on. So I quite like that in terms of simple plans. Now, this is a bit heavy going for 20 to 5 on a warm day. The words model I shared with you earlier, the model of change we've just shared with you now. There was a point within the UK that actually we were throwing money at technology, quite not jokingly. We were having interactive whiteboards in every room, voting systems, MIS, technology overload. And as we know, we get a dip when we go into technology overload. There were demands from Ofsted, demands for data. We have more data. You probably just sat through quite a bit with the Sims. We have more data than we know what to do with or care to do with in England. Actually, we put together a tool that can be used by individual teachers, but is predominantly used by leaders and schools, called the Self-Review Framework. And earlier on, I'm not going to ask you to look through this today. I'm getting a musical interlude. But actually, there is a self-review framework that individually I can go on, but if we're in the same school, we can all put our views on. And electronically, it gave you a whole school picture of where you were. It begins by, and I put the whole document to you, I'm sure you're pleased about that. I put the whole document in Dropbox, should you wish to use it, take it, tweak it, amend it, do everything. As I said, I have no respect for copyright anymore. Please use it. In Dropbox, I have a Dropbox folder. I have a Dropbox folder, and in here I have World Art, and I've put in video clips and self-review framework and other. If you give me your email address, it just invites you to go into that Dropbox and access. It's on the last slide. I have. Yes.
Maybe I'll ask people to opt out. If you don't want it, then tell me, and otherwise I'll just give everybody's email. Yes. Please let them know if you don't want it.
This one.
The other one before.
In the Dropbox as well, you have all of these slides. Please use them in any presentation you wish to. Probably don't want to see them again, but if you want to use them, use them. Are we ready? So in the Dropbox there is the whole document, and earlier on I put on your tables the teaching and learning one, and I'll walk around with this later. We're not going to look in detail at these, but I wanted to explain to you what the tool was, so that if you wanted to take elements or sections of it for your own school, then we can do it. Let me just talk you through how this works. First of all, the big picture. Within the document, there are several tools for you just to get a snapshot, just to get an idea of where people are. So, in terms of progression and achievement, and just do this in terms of, you don't need evidence now, this is just a finger in the air type of exercise. When I'm here, it's strongly agree. I am a human sliding scale. As I walk over here, it's strongly disagree. Okay? So we'll just take the first one. And when you think I'm at the point that your institution is, your school, the people you work with, then just raise your hand and we'll see where we are. Okay, so ICT has a clear impact on the achievements of pupils in your school. Strongly disagree.
Strongly don't know.
Okay? This here is strongly don't know. Okay? We're very confident.
I think you should go back.
Okay. I was going to say, if you've all got evidence for impact on students, can I have it? We'll be very rich collectively. Okay, so we're Strongly don't know?
So,
Strongly hopeful.
Strongly hopeful. Okay. ICT has a clear impact on the quality of teaching in our schools. Strongly disagree? More knocking at me? It's more hopeful than the learning, isn't it? We're more advanced than the learning.
There's more energy and more excitement, and that's always
That's a
good thing for
positive.
teaching. Yeah.
So we're more further on with the teaching than we are with the learning. Is anyone really over here? Give me a call when you want. Okay, we'll just move down here. Our school makes effective use of ICT to engage with parents. Our school uses ICT to engage with parents. Strongly disagrees over here? I'm moving. Whoa! Very good. More? Oh, hello. Very nice. Yeah, so we have community involvement. It was a phrase, wasn't it? If you want to teach the child, teach the mom. And finally, our school has an effective e-safety strategy that's used by staff, pupils and others. As you encompass more technology, how confident are you that nasty thing is not going to happen? Strongly disagree? Halfway? You all did so well in the quiz. You should all be over here. Okay. So again, just simple tools, because this is a big document, that you can, with staff, with a group, just discuss where you're good at. And sometimes it's better to work on your strengths than your weaknesses. I used to go into the college every day, and I run everywhere. I shout, I'm quite loud, and I felt unprofessional. And every Monday morning I said, I will be professional, I will be this, I will be that, I will be the other. It took me a while to realise that my strengths were the fact that I run around everywhere and I shout. And again, work on strengths, not on deficits. Except for e-safety, and we just have to work on that in case it all goes wrong. So there's the big picture, getting where that is for the area. Is my calendar annoying? Let's get rid of that. Last leg, bear with me, I won't even go into full PowerPoint for you. Then we look at the detail. On your tables you had examples of learning, and I'm just going to pull one up. And all this is a tool. All this is a tool, and remember, it's self-evaluation that individuals or schools can use. It's graded 1 to 5, 5 being, quite frankly, not very good at all, and 1 being aspirational. And again, a highlighter on these gives you, as a school, a very simple way to look at where you are, but also what the next step is. Sometimes we don't know what the next step is. Twitter's going mad. You can tell Bet Week is here. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a moment to explore. Don't worry about the detail. You should all be able to see one. Just a moment to explore these and the potential use you may have, just so that when you see it in Dropbox, you don't think it's a which one. Electronic copies of those. For various aspects of those, if you have an interest, I'm sure you have hundreds of good practice, and please share them with me so I can share them on. If you are looking for something specific that might be use of data, might be mobile technologies, then email me and I will source and find out different videos and information for you. Ambry, we're there. Okay. Tomorrow, school visit and bets. I just want to briefly talk to you about Neil Hopkin. and his school and where his background and theories come from, I mean briefly. And then flag up the BET website and just navigate you around BET a little bit. Has anyone been to BET before? I don't mean to petrify you. Okay. Last year. I will be on the Toshiba stand if you ever get lost. Want Toshiba. I'll write it down. But I'll be at the Toshiba stand for the majority of the day. I don't suggest you'd want to come and listen to me. You've had enough of me today. But if you do get lost or want me to find somebody that's selling this, that, and the other, I've got most of their numbers on my phone, so I can get hold of anybody for you. And you know, if you need to put your coat somewhere, just throw it at me and I'll sort it out. It's fine. Okay. Pause. Neil Hopkin worked prior to taking up, we call it executive headship, when you manage multiple schools. And Neil has got 2 schools at the moment and is quite famous for leading the technology drive from head teacher to head teacher. His school was judged by Ofsted. We have people that come in and assess. I assume it's similar, as outstanding. 2 very challenging schools. Neil didn't think he would be with us because he had an issue in school, but thankfully he is. And Neil went and explored Warana Park, which is in Australia, where actually the children again come in with their passions, and then the learning is put round them, sort of wrap-round provision to support, enable them to be learners. I'm just going to show you a couple of very brief clips from Neil's and also his blog, so that if you do enjoy Neil tomorrow, you can continually follow him and he gives his thoughts on things. I'll just press play. I'll just be quiet.
Into the school. How do you plan for this sort of learning environment? You let the children come with their passion. The school's had a long heritage of encouraging children to be independent learners and to plough their own furrow in terms of where their learning might go. But we were looking to formalise that and to think through the pedagogy very carefully and to develop our thinking ourselves in terms of what really is going to be important for 21st century learners.
Okay, so the children come in with their passion. Did have issues that teachers were worried that they would have to teach 30 different subjects. So it'd be interesting for you to see tomorrow how that happens. Neil's blog is very useful in terms of videos on school reforms, but here you will see actually where he's talking about that negotiated learning as well. So these videos on Neil's blog are around 10 minutes each, where he really goes into depth about how he's moved 2 quite challenging schools actually to the top of Ofsted through this method. Just go back here. And obviously you have to take...
See lots of examples of project-based learning also being driven by the child's passion for particular projects.
Another one of our favourite bits was this smart board. It was really fun. The only reason I time is good because you do all your work independently, and then if you finish that, you can go on any educational thing that you would learn from and that you enjoy learning from.
And in learning agreement time, you can also start your own project that you have an interest in. Like I have an interest in geology and that sort of thing.
I found a link to this competition online where the children, a group of 4, could enter a journalism competition, and it was about new technologies in school. So I put it as a provocation question during the learning agreement time. Could you think of a way that you could use new technologies you use at home in school, and how would that benefit our class? How would that link into the curriculum, and how would that expand your learning?
Well, when we first heard about the project, we had to get into like groups of 4, 3 or 2, and me, Josh, Austin and Raj, and we all grouped together.
And then we started thinking about the Wii, which we could use when it ran for PE, like Wii Sports and Wii Fit and things like that.
They came up with the idea that quite often they have to miss their PE lessons because it's raining, and they hate this. And if we had a Wii in school, a Wii Fit, they could play tennis or whatever they wanted to within the classroom and still do their PE lesson and also have some fun.
Okay, so the children come in with what they want to, and then it is agreed with the tutor. And then the children are encouraged to get into small groups to look at somebody's passion. So if it's not my passion of climbing this week, it would be in 3 weeks' time, and I'm going to support my colleague explore their passion and their learning. It's taken off remarkably. It's challenging, I'm sure, in terms of change management, and needs a lot of professional discussion around it. I won't play you another one.
Quite on.
But very, very user-led. Just going back onto Neil's website, I have put the blog in the presentation so that you can see it there. I'd encourage you to follow Neil on Twitter. He's my professional development when I'm feeling a bit, I need something new, I do follow him. That and TED. Do you watch TED? I watch TED when I'm depressed. It cheers me up. I have a very strange way of cheering myself up. I did 8 hours of TED, where at a very bad period, and I was very happy after. But that's just me. I'm a strange person. And then we're drawing to the end of our discussions around that. Today, I hope that we've talked about change at scale. The fact that it's key, if we can get into this culture of giving things away, to get a small group very, very early on to do an awful lot of work to then share with others, get that thinking time done and the passionate people on board to share. We've looked at the importance of chairs and painting lines down your corridors. If I ever come to your schools, please have a line down the corridor. You will notice London is very good on the tubes. We all stand on the one side and walk on the other. I also live in Birmingham. They don't do this, and Birmingham train station was screamed at to begin working like the tube. So it's my passion to get lines in all of your things. We've looked a little bit at leadership, and I think what you'll mainly get is actually the ideas that you seem to be working with each other. I'd love to keep collaborating with you because I think you've got some fantastic ideas. And although we may have started this 12 years ago in this country, we made a lot of mistakes and other people are moving very, very quickly. I think the only way we get this right is by looking at global practice as well. And in the last 15 minutes, I just, that is my email address, Skype, Twitter, slightly obsessed, and I will put them all in the Dropbox for you. Please feel free to email me, call me, Skype me. I will answer in pyjamas, I have done it before. So time periods are not a problem. And I look forward to working with you as you go through. Please come and wave at Bet tomorrow. It will make me look really popular with my colleagues and they'll all get really jealous.
And try to make it glog.
GLOG is question 14. It will be dedicated to yourselves. GLOG, and there was a question 15 somewhere and I've forgotten it, but I will remember it. What is GLOG?
This is the question 14.
This is question 14.
Why is stop blogging and start blogging? Blogging.
Sounds like